Welcome, friends, to another amazing episode. And before we get started, I always have a little coach's announcement. Now, I am starting to promote my 4-week cycling skills workshop. Now, what it is, it's a lot of one-on-one coaching from me for a ridiculously cheap price. One hour a week, we're going to go over a certain skill. You're going to get homework. You're going to be in a Facebook page, and I'm going to have Q&As in there. And that's where you can actually go in and ask specific questions for a month to help you improve your cycling skills. We'll be touching on pedal stroke, hill climbing, strength and power and speed, and nutrition, everything that makes cycling a more fun experience. And my mission is to get as many women feeling comfortable on their bike and riding safely. So check out sylviedaou.ca. The link will be in the bio or the show notes. And then after this, we are actually killing it. And I want to thank you for being a regular listener in the downloads. We are averaging 2,500 a week. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we've reached over 20,000 downloads and just climbing. Our contest is still open. So remember, get your reviews in. I pull a winner every Friday and I'm giving out prizes. I haven't been able to find the last 2 people. So make sure that you put your Instagram handle so I can find you, so I can give your prize out. And please keep sharing and enjoying. Thank you so much. I appreciate you more than you know.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another amazing episode of Speakers from the Saddle, all things cycling with your host, Sylvie Daou, and this amazing lady, Kinley Gibson, who is sitting in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and is she was an elite athlete, cyclist for Canada, but now she's turning into quite the cycling coach. So before we get into bringing Kinley out, I'm going to give you a little bit of background, and we have some really cool things we're going to be talking about. So I want you to listen. Don't forget to actually follow both of us on social media. So on Instagram, we're both there. And tag someone, share this podcast. This episode is going to be one you're really going to want to share with friends. All right, so Kinley started out as a triathlete and eventually transitioned fully to cycling as a second-year junior, and so she should, because cycling's better. I know, I love triathletes. Okay, and then Kinley raced for Trek Red Truck and then cycling racing on the road, as well as cycling on the Canadian national team on the track. In the time span of 2013, 2020, she had multiple national championship wins, World Cup medals, and a spot on the 2018 Commonwealth Games while competing for Canada. Her goal was to make the 2020 Olympic team in Tokyo, but was ultimately cut, unfortunately, from the team. And that's one of the things that we're going to really ask her about. Okay. So since stepping away from the Canadian team, Kinley now coaches cyclists of all levels for the Juventus. Sorry, I should ask first. Cycling team and Argyle Velodrome cyclist. So she's based out of Edmonton, so she works the velodrome there. And the Triathlon Academy and the ATV Financial Corporate Cycling Team. So away from the bike, she works as a personal trainer, is completing her 3rd year of health sciences at Queen's University from a distance, I imagine.
Yes.
Welcome, Kinley, to the podcast. Super happy to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so let's just dive in. I always ask everybody, how did you get into cycling?
Sure. So I was the kid growing up that did every single sport, every single activity. I had just an absolute mess of extracurriculars, and I don't know how my parents managed it, but anyway. So lots of different sports. I did basketball, volleyball, horse riding, triathlon, like you name it, like tons of different stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, and I got into triathlon kind of when I was like 13, 14, a bit more seriously, with this coach named Kevin Clark here in Edmonton, who I actually work with now as a assistant coach, which has been kind of a cool full circle. And so I really liked triathlon. Like, don't get me wrong, I had a lot of fun in the event, but I definitely wasn't going anywhere in the swimming department, to put it as nicely as I can.
You and me both.
Oh yeah, no, I couldn't deal. Anyway, so from there, I got into track cycling through Juventus Cycling Club. They have a really awesome program for kids called LAMP that was started by Lorianne Munzer, and it basically gets kids out like racing track, trying out mountain bike, trying out road, like just a whole bunch of kind of different disciplines. It's totally volunteer run. It's just like a really awesome organization. So I went out with them first when I was kind of 13, 14, and slowly as I kind of turned into a junior, I started focusing a bit more on cycling, particularly road and track. I really enjoyed them, and I was kind of starting to see some success there. I had a few really awesome coaches. So one guy, Tracy Shearer, when I was a bit younger, and then eventually this guy, Cameron Jennings, who ended up being the development coach, the first next gen coach for the Canadian women. He came over from Australia and was in Edmonton for a few years. So he was my coach. And so, yeah, I started seeing success at the junior level. Things started, kind of growing and multiplying. And by the time I was 17, I was qualifying for Junior Worlds and Junior Pan Ams, and feeling, really quite invested in this whole cycling sport and journey. So I fully stepped away from triathlon when I was like, I don't know, 16, 17, and decided to just kind of throw myself in to cycling and see how far I could go with it. So that's a rundown for you.
I love it. So, because, cycling's where it's at. I know. I love triathlon. I tried it once. I can't say that I didn't. I had my badge of experience, and now I'm like, no, this is way too boring for me. I need to do something else. And plus, I didn't like the swimming.
Lake swims. I don't need to hop in a lake and get kicked in the face by a bunch of other people. I just don't like, it's just a washing machine. You're like swallowing like lake water. Like, I was like, there's got to be a better way than this. And there was. It was quitting.
Stop swimming altogether. So, all right. So now you're 16, 17. Now you were picked up, or you started racing with Red Truck. No, sorry, Trek. Well, I'm going to say Red Truck.
Just say Red Truck.
Yeah. Were you racing with them at the women's UCI Gatineau race?
Okay. So the first time, let me think about this. First time I did Gatineau, I did it as a second year junior with the Canadian team. So Canada had a national team there. And I had gone down to, I might get this wrong, but I had gone down to a camp in South Carolina as a second year junior. And at that time, Denise Kelly was coaching the road team. And I rode, actually it was the second year I went down there. I went down there the first year and it was fine, but it was not great. And then I went down the second year and I was quite a bit stronger. And Denise Kelly, I think from there kind of invited me on to race the Gatineau race with some of the older Canadian girls. Like, I think Lex raced it. Oh gosh, I honestly don't really remember. Anyway, it was like a small Canadian team, and it was like, throw you in there, see how you do, and try and learn some things. So that was fun. Like that was like kind of my first bigger road race that I got to do, and I had no idea what was going on. And I was just like, oh my God, there's
We'll learn
cars
something.
following the race, like what's happening? Like I was like so confused and like no clue. But yeah, that was super fun. That was kind of like my first big road race, I guess.
That's a good first road race. You like
big road race. I've done local stuff obviously, but yeah.
like looking around. Oh my god. Like make sure I pay. So then is that where you were picked up by Jenny and the cyclery? She seems to be like picking up girls.
No, so I was on Red Truck first. So I got onto Red Truck, I think when I was, oh God, first year elite, I think it was the end of my second year junior and the start of my first year elite. I had known Jenny because she came down to like the first Cycling Canada project I ever did, which was junior track Pan Ams in Guatemala. And yeah, and I think she was there as like an assistant coach. And so that's where I first met her. And then I kind of like knew her basically forward from there. Like you'd see her at all the races and everything. And then we got to be closer and she got more involved like when I did transition to cyclery. But no, I rode on Red Truck 2015 and 2016. Yeah, and that was awesome. I love that team. Like we had an awesome just couple years, like just a really strong group of girls. You know, like we did a ton of just like really fun races. It was good vibes. Like it was like a fun couple years with them for sure.
Are they based out of Edmonton?
No, they're based out of Vancouver.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So then you spent a little time on cyclery and then you transitioned to the track.
So I was kind of doing track all the way up. So because it's a little bit two different worlds. Like I was kind of always involved on the track side with the national team, whether it was like as a junior, as a development rider, and then eventually as an elite rider, kind of like from basically late 2016 forward, I guess is the best way to say. So I would ride the road. My ultimate goals were always kind of track based. Like I always kind of had in the back of my head, like Tokyo 2020 on the track, like for team pursuit, that's like where my arrow is pointing. But the road is obviously so integral. Like, I mean, the two worlds are super meshed, right? So, yeah, so I raced for Red Truck for those 2 years, and then I transitioned over to the cyclery just because at that time the next gen program on the track side with Cycling Canada was starting to get more meshed with the cyclery, and the cyclery is kind of becoming a little bit, you know, intertwined with the next gen track program. So it just was a natural fit of like, rather than trying to fit my track obligations around what I needed to do on the road for Red Truck, it just made more sense to go with a team that was going to kind of work around those track obligations, you know, first, and then I could do the road sort of secondary, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So this sort of segues into, you said you're pointing your arrow towards 2020 Tokyo.
Yeah.
Now, in this mix, you were able to get a Petro-Canada grant.
Yeah.
How does that work? Because that's the first time I've heard of it.
It was the first time I'd also heard of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So how did you go about finding it and being the successful recipient of it? And because, like I was mentioning, like I saw you in all these little interviews through Petro-Canada. I imagine that was part of the package, but also working your way towards Tokyo. How did you get on that track?
Sure. So that, I believe that grant, actually my coach at the time, who was Cameron Jennings, nominated me for the grant.
Right.
And so I kind of found out that I was nominated after I got it, which was like a lovely surprise.
No
and
interview, no nothing.
no, it kind of just like, yeah, it sort of just like happened, at least from memory. I hope I'm not remembering that wrong. It's been a few years, but yeah, that was like a super, like, just, that was a really helpful little bit of money to get.
Who applied for it, because you know about these grants, like nobody knows about them. So like,
Yeah.
Okay, everybody who's listening, if you know a good athlete who's really killing it, check out this. I don't even know if it's still around, but Petro Canada coaching is definitely still around. Like they still support like coaching. So odds are it's somewhere buried on the website. Go find it and nominate someone for it.
Honestly, like, I mean, I'm also just clueless. Like, I don't know, like, but no, it came through at a like really fortunate time. Like, and I think Bridge the Gap, like the Bridge the Gap funding also really fills that need, because like, you know, when you're a junior, your parents, I mean, if you're lucky, I don't want to say everyone's parents support them, but I was lucky enough to have parents that really supported me. And I know other juniors that I raced with also were lucky enough to have parents that really supported them. And, you know, you have that support, but then there is that gap when you hit elite. And I think it's really pronounced for women particularly. Like, you don't get a U23 field. Like, you don't really get a separate stage to kind of like show what you're made of and show what you can do. Like, you're thrown in with the big dogs immediately, and it's like sink or swim, like go for it kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just hard to kind of like make your mark and stay financially afloat and get onto teams. And again, I had a lot of support from my parents. Like, I would not have been able to do this if I didn't have my parents supporting me, like, just full stop. And that's, I mean, one of the unfortunate things about cycling as well. But yeah, it was like a perfectly timed thing, because I kind of just left junior and I wasn't really seeing a ton of success yet as a first year elite. And yeah, it's stuff like that is super, super helpful, I think, for especially that age group of like 19, 20, 21-year-olds.
Yeah. Okay. So, Kinley, what was the chunk of money? I have to ask.
I think it was 5,000.
Okay. Here I was like 15,000. I'm like, that'd be a good chunk of money for.
No, it was not that much. No, but it was still really good. It was still really good.
I think at least one or two trips, depending on where you're going.
Yeah.
But get you. So you got that funding. So now so then where did you make the team working towards Tokyo? Because that was your goal.
Yeah. So I was out of junior, I was on the track, and then 2014, 2015, the girls who went to Rio were all working together and doing camps. And there was basically like Ariane Bonhomme and I, these like two little kiddos right out of junior. And we were super interested, super involved in the track. And there was just not a ton of interest and involvement from other juniors that we were with. Like, a lot of our junior year just kind of vanished. You know, they did a couple years and then they were just gone. And like, we were some of the only ones. I mean, if I think of like our year, like of junior racing, like now she is basically the only one like left still fully racing. Like, it's kind of crazy. So we would kind of tag along. Like, we'd get to go to some of these camps and down in Los Angeles and in like Malibu and stuff. And sometimes join in with the girls when they're doing, like the elite girls, I mean, the ones training for Rio while they were prepping, and hop in and like try and hang on for some efforts, go out for some road days. Like that was kind of, we were just trying to learn and get as much development as we could. And because there wasn't really others in our age group, we kind of had the privilege of just being thrown in with this like Olympic group occasionally, which was really, really cool. Like, I think it definitely made us better riders, which was, can't complain about that, right?
Yeah, I'll say, Jesus. If you can go and like be accepted into the group and actually be able to ride with them, I mean, of course that's going to propel you forward. So then you find yourself training for Tokyo, right?
Yeah. Once the Rio Olympics were done, a spot kind of opened up for the two of us. So
okay.
Not entirely, but I mean, they'd just done this like crazy 4-year quad training, and like there's definitely some riders in there that wanted to step back and take a breather, and the two of us were like, hey, we can hop in and go places, like so we got to go like later 2016. We went down and we did Pan Ams in Mexico and raced Team Pursuit down there, which was like super, super fun, had a great time. We also got to do this like awesome project in Cali, Colombia, like early 2017. It was the first World Cup either of us had raced. And so they paired the two of us off with Laura Brown and Steph Rorda, who were like just total mentors and kind of took us through the whole World Cup process and just taught us so much. And so like, yeah, like our first World Cup experience was basically just this little team of the four of us. And we did the prep in Milton, and we flew into Cali, and we did, like, I think we were actually silver at that World Cup. Like it was a really fun project because it just came together like really smoothly. Everyone rode really well, like everyone felt good. And like we just had so much fun. Like Ariane and I, like, we're just like, oh, we're in a World Cup, like la la la, like.
I've had the pleasure of interviewing her too. Geez.
Yeah. Actually, now that I think about it, that was actually our second World Cup. The first World Cup we did, no one talks about it because it was really, really bad. So maybe I won't bring it up.
Okay. You have to talk about the bad stuff too. You can't say everything was awesome. Okay, why was it bad? Because we all have competitions.
Well, we were. It was in 2015. It was in 2015, and at this point, we'd really done no prep, and it was like, it was a team of like 4 Devo athletes. It was like me, Ariane, Annie Foreman-Mackey. Oh, she's gonna hate that I threw under the bus. And Catherine Dessereau. And we showed up, and we barely trained together. We had no clue what we were doing. We were like second last. Like oh, so bad. Oh, Sylvie. Oof. Yeah. Anyway.
Tell me.
Like, no, like we like, I don't know. Just imagine like everything that can go wrong in a team pursuit went wrong. Like it was just like
Did you?
No, we did. We all stayed upright, thank God. Like that would have been icing on the cake. But
did you, like, split apart? Was there big gaps, or like were you just?
No, it was just there was big gaps. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know how to ride the wheel. It was like, oh, it was just, anyway, you can tell I've purged it from my mind because I told you that the 2017 World Cup was the first one that I'd ever done. And like, I'd like fully erased it. I was like, hang on, that's not entirely true.
I want to hear the bad and the. So yeah, so you learned a lot from that one, basically.
Yes. We learned that you need more than like 3 weeks of prep if you want to go race a World Cup. I think that was the.
You're like, so Cycling Canada, what were you thinking? This is your fault. Well, look how far you guys have come. Like, honestly.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
You have to have one of those.
You
right?
do. You
And-
do.
And it's that you don't know how anything to like train on and think about and improve. So
Well, it's kind of like, I mean, I can think of the first time, like the first year I went to Junior Worlds, I was like last in literally every race. So I came out of there and it was like, well, at least I know where the bar is and I'm down here and it's up here. So
I've got lots of improving.
yes.
It's
Yeah.
better than being like, I don't know if it's better than being like at the top when you're like, you know, the bar is so high.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And you just have to get better and better and better. I think like starting kind of close to the middle is always like, you know.
Well, you have the, you know, the joy of exceeding people's expectations when you show up next year, or, you know, the bar's already on the floor, so they don't.
Yeah.
They didn't expect anything anyway out of you, so that's, you know, whatever.
Well, I love that you brought in that one because, you know, it's always like, yeah, it was an awesome race. It's an awesome race. I'm like, come
I bet
on.
Ariane didn't talk about the 2015 World Cup.
I don't think so. I'd have to look back, but I don't think we mentioned that one. No. So, all right. Well, you were able to stay on the team, thankfully. And they're like, okay, we'll forget that one. Let's move on to the next World Cup.
The second one we did went great. It went fabulous. So there you go.
You know, it's probably what, I don't know if it was one of those situations where like, okay, we need to put a team in. Who are we going to pick? Girls.
Oh, I bet you anything it was one of those situations.
And
I don't think they were like, oh, these girls are just so talented. Like, come on.
Never ridden with this girl before. I don't know. Okay, so let's talk about you leading up to well, so this is like what we're really going to talk, well, what we're going to focus on, because
yeah,
this is another, it's one of those things like you were on the team, you're training for Tokyo. So after, I guess, the next Worlds, you're on your way to training for Tokyo. And, you know, that was like on your radar 100%. Like, let's just talk about that, because remember what we were saying, that, I mean, Kinley got cut. I hate to say it. You know, it's hard to say. Like, she didn't make the team. So how do you go through that, you know, emotionally? Because I know we were talking about this before. So I want to bring that back, like emotionally, and like you're leading up to, okay, you talk.
Okay. Sure. So I always knew Tokyo was going to be a little bit of a long shot, because, or maybe not long shot, but it was going to be tough. Because I was pretty consistently kind of that alternate rider, that like 5th, 6th, sometimes 7th person. And I mean, they take 4 and then you've got a 5th alternate or omnium rider, whoever it might be, for team pursuit. And so because I was always kind of on that outside, it was like, all right, this thing is not a sure thing. I need to make sure I do. I need to check every box. I need to do everything as well as I possibly can. Like you got to minimize your off days. You've got to be as consistent as you can be. Like, that was kind of like my mindset. And so I really did try and put together every little piece that I could leading up to Tokyo. One thing about that alternate spot is like, I think you learn a lot about just like interacting in a team dynamic when you're in that position, because in a lot of races you're like, I mean, you're the support person, you're there in case anything goes wrong, but you're there to make sure that your teammates go fast. Like ultimately, like it's not about you on race day, like it's about them. Like they're the ones going up to the start line and doing their ride. And so I think it was really useful for me, and I think I learned a lot just like kind of as almost an observer sometimes, because I was very involved in the process, but I was also not necessarily always the one riding or racing. And so I think I got to kind of sit back and see what worked and see what didn't work for certain teammates and for kind of the process overall. So I did always really enjoy that alternate role. Actually, I found it really valuable for myself as a person. But sorry, anyway, back to Tokyo and like prepping.
That's good, because I think it's a mindset to say, like, I mean, you could be negative about it and be, you know, or you use it as a good learning tool for yourself to go, you know, this is what I can apply, I assuming, to yourself when you're back in that position. But awesome. Okay, so you're moving on to Tokyo. Let's go.
Yeah, so, well, I'll give a quick kind of rundown of basically what happened in terms of my prep and then getting cut. So kind of through the summer of 2019, I was feeling really good. I felt I was racing on the road really well, kind of training was ticking along really well. Like it was just a really positive summer. Like it's definitely one of the best times I've ever felt out on the road. Like I felt awesome through the road season. In August of that year, we went down as a team to Colorado. And in Colorado, I had an awesome altitude camp. So we were there for this big 3-week altitude block. And then we were supposed to go to Bolivia to race Pan Am Championships. Oh, and wow. I felt like so good down in Colorado. Like honestly, the best I've ever felt on the bike. I'm someone that I do really well at altitude. I really enjoy the challenge of altitude, and it was just like an awesome camp. Like I was just like, man, this is ticking along. Like I was feeling, I think I said this to you in the pre-interview, but like I'm not someone, like I don't count my chickens. Like I don't, you know, I don't like to jinx myself. I just like to wait and see and like not talk too much. But I was feeling really good. I was like, this is actually, if I can like keep this momentum going and keep this trajectory going, it's a long way away, but you know, this Tokyo thing could actually happen. Like that's actually pretty crazy. I feel really good. And so then we ended up going to Bolivia, and I was the alternate for the team pursuit in Bolivia. I didn't get to race. The girls raced team pursuit really, really well. They did post an awesome time. And I was going to race the scratch race and the points race. And I went out and I raced the scratch race and I felt awesome. I think I was second or third, and just like felt like so good. Like I was like, man, this is wicked. Like this is really coming together. Then a couple days later, because it's Bolivia, I kind of got some food poisoning and didn't feel super good. So then I had this like points race to do, which I was not terribly stoked on. I was feeling pretty run down at that point, but I went in and I was just getting like, I didn't have anything in my legs. Like I just felt like so crappy. And I just remember doing like these laps and being like, how did I feel so good like 5 days ago? Like I just feel like I was like getting lapped. I was like, ugh, like it was horrible. And then right in front of me, big crash, run into the crash, boom, down I go, smack my head on the apron. And I hit my head like pretty darn hard on the ground. I stood up and immediately was like, something's wrong. I was super out of it. I was having a really hard time balancing. I always knew where I was. It was more just like visual stimuli. It was really made me super dizzy, made me super nauseous. Walking in a straight line was kind of tough. Like kind of like basic motor stuff was a problem. And so
though, right?
What's that?
You had a concussion before? Yeah.
No, this was the concussion that I got in September.
This was the concussion Chin. All right. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, so I kind of knew pretty soon, like, all right, this is going to be a bit of a setback for sure. Like, this is going to take some time. And I actually, from Bolivia, flew home, probably the worst flight of my life, because I was just like nauseous and felt like absolute garbage the entire time. Flew home. I stayed in Milton for a week so I could like go see the doctor there. I stayed with like Annie, and then like Amelia and Aiden. I stayed in their house so they could keep an eye on me. I didn't stay at like my own apartment where I was living in Milton. And they were awesome. They basically just like took care of me like for a week because I was an invalid. Like I was like not capable of doing anything. I'd get up to like try and wash a dish and be like, oh, I need to sit down. Like I was like a nightmare. And so props to them, like they were the best. And then eventually I flew home, and then I was home for like a month, and I ended up I had some very good people in my corner that helped me manage my recovery really, really well. And
Right.
I really had the luxury of not needing to rush back. Like Cycling Canada just basically gave me the message of like, take as long as you need, make sure you're healthy. And that was going to be my mindset anyway. Like I don't know, I've always had other goals outside cycling. Like I didn't need to, I don't know, mess up those goals. Like the health of my brain was kind of like my first priority, and I didn't really care if I had to take a bunch of time off to make sure my brain got healthy. So I was able, because of that mindset, I think, and because of the really good support network that I had, both through Cycling Canada and my teammates, and then, you know, my family back home, I actually was able to kind of come back fairly quickly, given kind of the severity of what the concussion was. So I was back in Milton training, I want to say like end of October, and the concussion would have happened like early September. So honestly, not bad.
Right. It's pretty quick.
Yeah. So yeah, now here we are, like end of October, and I still have that Tokyo goal. And so I sat down with a few of the coaches and stuff involved in the decision making, and I basically said, listen, do I still have a shot? Because if I don't have a shot and you don't want to bring me to the games, like just let me know now, because there's other stuff I can do. Like there's other interests I have, there's other things that, you know, there's other things I want to pursue outside of the sport. And so if Tokyo's not a realistic goal for me anymore with the time I've had to take away, let me know and I'm going to step away. And that was kind of the way I framed it. And
Kind of good.
yeah, I mean, I always kind of knew Tokyo was probably going to be my like end goal. And if I didn't make it, I was going to be pretty content stepping away. And so at this point I was like, you know what? Just let me know. And if it's go, it's a go. And if it's not, then I'm going to step back. And so they basically told me, all right, well, the elite team's going to go to New Zealand. They're going to do this big training camp. And we might have you come in later and join them. We need to see how training goes over the next few months. But they said, you're not out of the game. You could still make the team. You just need to put in as much work as you can, kind of up until this World Cup in January. And what we want you to do is we want you to race the World Cup in January with the next gen development team. And we're going to see how it goes. And we're going to make a decision from there. And I was like, all right, seems fair. Like I was kind of in, like, I thought that was a really fair way of doing it. And
yeah,
so I kind of just put my head down, and it was sort of a combo thing. So part of it was I just needed to raise my peak power. Like I just needed more and more watts, right? So up until that point, I had always been a very, very lean person and very lean racer. And they said, you got to eat more food. Like you got to put on a whole bunch of muscle or you're not going to be able to like do what you need to do. So I was like, all right,
wow.
food plan. So like,
Oh my God. Buy the cow, because that's basically what I got to eat the next day.
honestly. So I was like, all right, let's do this thing. Like I'm in, like I'm all in. So I was doing these like really hard training sessions out on the road, in the track, in the gym, and just eating just wild amounts of food, like just it would blow you away. And at least for me, like, I don't know, I'm not like a bodybuilder. Like I'm
Well, I was just gonna say, like, when you get into building body mass, like even as your competitor, you are eating a considerable amount, and I've had some crazy different meal plans from different coaches, and I'm like, are you serious? Like, you really want me to eat this like every morning for a month? Like every and she's like, yes. And then you do it and you pack on like 10 5 maybe 7 pounds, and you're like, oh my god. And then you're like, oh yeah, now I have to maintain this. But it's crazy because
I was fortunate that at least it was pretty flexible. Like it was, eat something from this food group and you're trying to get X grams of protein and X grams of carbs. So like I could make it fit what I wanted it to fit. But it was definitely like a different experience for me. Like, it was interesting.
You don't like.
It worked. Like, I mean,
it works.
I put on like 2.5 kilos of muscle or something crazy. Like it was in like not a long, it was like, I don't know, like a month and a half. Like it was like a really short period of time. I was like, oh, cool. All right. This thing does apparently work. And so I trained through November and in Milton doing like this really big strength block that was like, I mean, I love strength stuff and high power stuff like that. I mean, if I'm going to do anything on the bike, like I love stuff like that. So that was really fun. And then I actually got to go to Girona with a few of the next gen athletes. And we were pretty much there on our own. Like Laura Brown was there for a bit, like helping out, which was awesome. So we got to do some riding with her, and then Sean Clark as well. But most of my rides, I was out just riding on my own, doing long miles in Girona. We were staying in like right downtown. It was this awesome little place. And so December was like super fun. Some of the most like productive training I've ever done in my life, because I could just set my own schedule, do what I needed to do. And like, I'm someone like, I love riding on my own. Like, don't get me wrong. Like I like riding with other people too, but I like to just like go out, set my pace and cruise. And, so like that whole month of December, like I was feeling super, super fit. Like I was again riding the best I've ever ridden. And then we came in for January. The World Cup was supposed to be the end of the month. And I trained with the next gen team kind of all through January. And they were awesome. Like they were a ton of fun. Like just that whole group, like that whole like next gen trap group, they've got the most positive attitudes, and Jenny is like just created such a like good little team culture. And oh my god, they're amazing, Sylvie. Like I had so much fun with this group. Like they were just a blast. Like every single day was a total blast with them. And we rode the World Cup. It went really, really well. We were third, like, and I felt great in the ride. Like I was taking these long pulls and felt really strong. I had some test data from January that was like, I'd done kind of the best 4-minute power that I'd ever done. Like I was feeling like really good. Like this is on, right? I was finally, once that World Cup was done in my head, I was like, I think I've cinched this thing. Like I think I'm gonna get a phone call that is a good phone call. Like I was feeling, and I don't think that way. Like just I want to be like really clear. Like I never assume that I'm gonna be successful. like I'm very, very wary of like thinking something good is going to happen. I'm like, don't get ahead of yourself. Don't get ahead of yourself. You don't know what's going to happen. Don't get ahead of yourself. Like, and so I was in that mindset finally of like, I think I've checked the boxes I need to check. Like, I think this could actually work out. And so ring, ring, I get a call on the phone And I answer so excited, oh, let me tell you, yada, yada, yada. And no.
Oh, you're like,
Yeah. Yeah, they basically the coach Matt was basically like, yeah, we've decided not to take an alternate. So essentially the position that I was looking to fill was cut entirely from the team.
Oh.
So yeah,
like, well be cut because I don't want to hear about some other chick.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, that is at least a small like thing. Is it's not like actually we've decided to go with
Yeah, you're
Miss
like
Mary Sue over here. Like I was like, oh, okay, well, I mean, at least you got rid of the whole position. I don't have to feel too bad.
yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, that was a bit of a shock to the system. And I was actually moving back to Edmonton the next day. So I got that call at 9 p.m. at night. And that was quite the emotional little roller coaster, let me tell you. And then at like 4:30 a.m. the next day, I had to be in my car driving back to Alberta in January. So that was quite the journey, let me tell you.
You're driving in the winter to Edmonton.
Yes, through Northern Ontario, like all the little roads. And
so how did you emotionally take it? Like, I know that, and I can just imagine like being in your in your position when you're like, this is it, I made it. And then, but you also seem like you have things on the back burner, and that's cool. I'm just going, and it's kind of like me. It's like, oh, you're firing me? Okay, thanks. I'm on to the next project. Yeah, look,
yeah.
I let the door hit my ass on the way out. I'm cool. See you later. So, how did you deal with it?
I mean, I did.
Like, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna pretend it was like some easy thing that I just left off, because I definitely didn't. Like, I mean, it was, I mean, it's been a goal of mine since I was tiny. I have been, I would say, actively training towards it for, I had been actively training towards it for probably 8 years at that point. Like if I kind of count the years as a junior, which like as a junior, I still had that goal, right? And so, and I, so that's a really big portion of your life that is dedicated to this like one singular thing. And I think part of it was like, there's a little bit of fear, I think, that you don't know how to function in the quote unquote real world, because I'd been a athlete my whole life, like, going all up and through high school and everything. Like I was in a billion different sports and super, busy all the time. And I always had my schedule set for me. And I always like, I set my own goals in the sport, but like the sport, I was on a set of rails. And as soon as I kind of left high school, well, then I was on another set of rails, and the set of rails was the national team or the road team I was racing on. And that set of rails was pointing towards this station at the end of the track, which was Tokyo 2020. And so everything I did was within that framework. Like just as a reference, like I'd never had a proper job. I I'd never really had to build anything for myself, or it was always presented to me. Here's the next race. Here's the next thing you're going to go do. This is the goal at the end of this year. This is what we're, so like, I just wasn't used to thinking off the rails at all. And so when I got this news, I mean, I had been making plans, but my plans had been for September of 2020. So in September of 2020, I know I want to be back in Edmonton, and I want to be going to school, and maybe I want to be pursuing like a personal trainer certification and working in a gym somewhere. Like these were kind of things I was putting together, and basically all those plans got fast forwarded, like boom, to the start of the year. And then I was kind of like,
first.
Yeah. It was like, I don't have anything in place for this. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And so there was that sense of like kind of that fear of like, I don't know how to be a human being. Like there's this like really, like, I don't know how else to describe it. So there was that, but then there was also this sense of like, I don't know, like just real loss, because you train with this group of girls, whether it was the next gen girls kind of later on or the elite girls, you build this real sense of community, this real sense of just belonging. You're with these people 24/7, like, and through good and bad, and you have fights with these people, and you get along with them sometimes, and you confess things to each other, and like it's just this like, I mean, it really is, you're with them more than you are with your own family. And all of a sudden that's taken away too, and now you're just totally on your own, and it's like, good luck. And there are, I don't want to make it sound like it was completely like you're kicked out the door and there's no resources for you, because there are, like, there's programs like Game Plan, and Cycling Canada did a really good job of like reaching out to me. And so
I was going to ask about that, because I just learned about that from a girl, Paige Lawrence. She's in my a business mastermind group of mine, and she's an ex-pro figure skater.
Yeah.
For Canada. And she was telling me about that, and I'm like, what? I've never heard about that. So I'm glad that you mentioned it. So it's Game Plan, and that's for Canadian Olympic athletes who are no longer or retired or from teams, like all sports.
Yeah, like they basically pair you up with an advisor, and they run different workshops and stuff, and like you can basically ask them, for lack of a better term, you can ask them adulting questions. You're like, hey, I've never made a resume. What the heck do I put on a resume? Like, honestly.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, like stuff that you've just not really done. And I really didn't utilize them too much. I'm very much an independent learner, for lack of a better, like I was just like, all right, I've never made a resume. Well, go Google how to make a resume. And I like just started putting stuff together and kind of found my own path that way. I did chat with the advisor a few times, and he was definitely helpful and like, you know, super open and stuff. But I felt like I could kind of make my own way once I got my feet under me. And so, but yeah, it's a great organization. And like I said, like Cycling Canada also reached out with lots of resources. And
good to know.
Oh yeah. No, it wasn't like you're out on your butt, good luck kind of thing. Like there was more support than that, but it is very jarring, and there's no way to make it not jarring, I guess.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I'm sure that there's not like they can't. Well, maybe it's just hard. You have to go through those emotions first. Before, you know, somebody can step in and help you, and maybe through therapy. I mean, Mike, because you know, a lot of people have their whole identity wrapped around that, and if you don't have your own transition to retirement planned out, then and it comes as a surprise, you know, like from an injury or something like that, then you know it's that's a bit of a surprise when you don't have things like that in place.
Yeah, it's funny you say that about identity. Like, I think I thought I wasn't someone who had my entire identity wrapped up in it. Like, I think that I thought I had balance. Like, I think if you'd asked me, are you balanced? Do you have a good balance between sport and your life? I think I would be like, yeah, I have a good balance. But like, I don't know, now that I've had a little bit of space and like 18 months or whatever, like it's been like, I'm like, no, I didn't have any balance. Like I only rode my bike. Like, what are you talking about? Like now I actually feel like I am properly balanced, and I actually do have, you know, other avenues. But at the time I was pretty gung-ho, like eyes focused on this one singular thing.
Yeah, I can see that. So I guess you weren't too torn up when COVID hit. I just have to mention that. It's like, yeah, take that. No Olympics.
I'm not gonna pretend I'm like a saint, but like
I'm like, now I got some real time to figure out what I want.
it was definitely like a weird mix of emotions of being like, oh, I'm kind of glad I dodged the bullet a little bit. Like,
oh yeah, that's right.
Don't envy having to try and pivot as like someone training for the games. Like, so much of your prep is already done and you've sorted everything out, and then like people that have planned out like like their full kind of retirement and what they're gonna do after, like, oh, I mean, I felt really bad for the girls when I heard the news. Like, that's
like another year of racing.
Oh my God. I got to see, like, I know how much work they put in. I know how much work they put in the span of time from 2016 to 2020. And like, to have the rug pulled out from you like that, like, that's, oh, I would have been so beyond devastated to be like, just kidding, you need to put in another year. Because, like, don't get me wrong, it's an amazing experience and like all that stuff is totally true, but like, it's freaking hard and you put a lot of your life to the side so you can do this one thing, and to be told like, just kidding, can you just keep trucking along, like,
just keep riding.
Oh my God, yeah.
September for next year.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, I mean,
I know I talked to Kelsey Mitchell, who was super new.
Yeah.
And she's just like, whoa, that was the best thing ever, because now I can go back and actually get better. And I think she was like, I mean, but I see from her point, because she was so newly recruited and she went through so much hardness, like just trying to get to a point where she could race properly. And she's like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. Like, I can actually prep properly. But
well, that's the thing. Like, I think it's going to be a really interesting games to watch, because there's so many. I mean, you want to talk adaptability, like, this is gonna be who's the most adaptable and who's been the most consistent. I mean, there's people in her position that, like, you're like, thank God you're gonna give me another year of prep, like, booyah, this is the best news I've ever gotten in my life.
Or like, yay, I wasn't quite feeling ready for it to begin with. And others girls, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been training for like 4 years already.
Yeah, like, yeah.
Now I've got another.
It's so interesting. Like, I think seeing what comes out of this is going to be, well, and just the games themselves, I think, are going to be so odd. Like, with reduced spectators or maybe no spectators, and
I think we're used to it now, like watching football, watching like hockey, watching basketball, like, they just really don't look at the stands too much, right? It's all like kind of on the play. But okay, so let's, like, I know we've been chatting for a long time, but let's talk about like your transition. So you're like, okay, I am now, like, this is what I'm gonna do. So now you're coaching. It's been a year, a bit, and you started a business for yourself. And let's just talk about being like Kinley the coach.
Cool, yeah. Mostly, so like, I have what's that?
You're like, okay, girls, who's on the Olympic track to go? Okay, well, we're gonna have a talk, and then like, this is how we're gonna create balance. Because I think it's so important now that we have more, and I'm sure, and there's always been like Olympic, like, coaches who have gone and experienced to a high level like you did, that you have so much to give to younger athletes to help them better prepare themselves. Like you said, I had no balance whatsoever. Like, now I'm like, okay, we're going to do things differently so that you are, like, do you feel that way?
Yes, like 100%. Like, so basically what I'm doing for coaching, like, I'm working for a few kind of a broad range of organizations,
Yeah.
just like kind of basically like a contractor, and I'm working for Juventus. That's kind of like, you know, mostly kind of younger kids.
Right.
Avra is kind of kids with more kind of aspirations towards racing. It's more of like a performance focus.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing some stuff with a corporate cycling team. So like total like general population. They first time they've been on a bike, they are like, you know, they're like super, super new. Yeah. And so like, and then I'm working with Kevin at the Edmonton Triathlon Academy. So like where I started the sport, I now got to work with him and coach his little like kiddos out on the bike, which has been really, really fun. And so, yeah, like kind of especially with the younger ones, I think there's like a really big sense, I feel a very large sense of responsibility to make cycling as a sport like a positive experience. Yeah. Because ultimately, like if I think about high performance, like taught me a lot for sure, but I think there's so much good that comes out of sport not in a high performance context as well. And so if, you know, the younger kids that I'm coaching decide they want to go that route and they want to race and they have those performance goals, then that's awesome. And they're going to learn a ton doing that. But like, I want them to have fun cycling, enjoy it a ton, build a little community, and then like be on the bike for the rest of their life. Like I want them to always see it as like a way they can stay active, see it as like a welcoming community that they can be a part of. And so especially with the younger ones, that's kind of the way I'm trying to frame it. So that's kind of my first approach, and I'm encouraging them to build their lives around it, fit it to their lives is probably a better way to say it. Don't build your life around it. That's maybe not yet. But yeah, so that's kind of with the younger ones, that's what it's been. And then it's just been a really good learning experience for me too, because like I spent a long time as an athlete, but it doesn't mean I know anything about coaching. Like I know what works for me as an athlete, and I've seen lots of different techniques, and I know a fair bit about cycling, but
yeah,
I think there's going to be a time when I want to kind of really, and I have a few clients that I coach personally, but there's going to be a time when I want to do my own thing and start my own kind of coaching business, but I just don't quite feel comfortable doing that until I've dipped my toe into a lot of different waters and worked with a lot of different types of athletes, because I just, you know, like I said, I've got that athlete experience. I don't totally have that coach experience yet. And I want to make sure that when I do start that, it looks like what I want it to look like. And I'm not pivoting, right? Like I have a bit more of a vision. So, you know, I'm just kind of trying to craft what that vision is, I guess.
Well, it's kind of good. You're kind of got your feet in a lot of different things. And I think at some point you're going to go, you know what, my heart's really over here, and this is where I'm going to go. And then you're going to build up your framework around it, like what's your coaching going to look like, and, you know, the community around there. And it's just going to fit. And you're going to
feel yeah. Well, I especially, like, I didn't think I was going to enjoy coaching like teenagers as much as I do.
Like, you know, need people like you.
They're the best. They're so much fun. I coach this like group of like 5 or 6 like teen girls, and they're the funniest people I've ever listened to in my entire life.
Like, you know, like, God, was I like that as a teenager? Like, holy moly.
They are so funny, Sylvie. And they'll have these conversations, like I'll be coaching them at the track, and they'll be having these conversations with each other, and like they don't realize like sound echoes off the track. Like I can hear every word they're saying all the time. And so I'm just like, I'll just be standing on the infield, just like dying laughing, just because like, I don't know, I'm hearing like all this teen drama like 24/7. It's just fabulous.
All right, girls, let's ride our bikes now.
Oh my God. You're like, yeah, we're doing team pursuit, and they're just like, no, the entire time. Like, I feel like we're maybe not going hard enough.
Right. Yeah. Like, don't worry about that guy. He's you know, like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, that's so awesome. And it's so great. And I forgot like a little bit of like how we know each other. Well, there's actually quite a lot of, you know, the cyclery team. I've seen them, and I've seen Kinley walk through, and then like we were on a coaching course, 6 weeks, and I was just like, oh my God, I know some of these people. And I thought that was the best program. But
it was good. It was
yeah,
really good.
it was really good. And I think that more of that should happen. A collaboration with Canadian coaches across Canada, or coaches across Canada, cycling coaches across Canada.
There's just so much knowledge on that call. Like, it was wild. Like, I was just like, holy moly. Like, every time we did a breakout room, I was like, oh, this is crazy. Like
I don't know if I should be here.
Imposter syndrome was real, man. Like, I was just like,
yeah,
holy fish out of water. Like, yeah, no, 100%.
In there, like, so last minute. But anyways, so I just want to thank you. This has been amazing. I love chatting about, and so we're gonna add. So remember, everybody, thank you again for listening to this podcast. I hope you took something away. Please add, you know, your biggest takeaways in the notes or as comments, and follow both of us on Instagram. Please take a snapshot of this and tag both of us. That would be super awesome. Share with your friends, give us a review, right, Kinley? I mean, like, we deserve a 5-star. I asked everybody. Yeah, 5-star. And a good review. And so thank you so much, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun, a lot of laughing. I like that.
Good one, yeah.
I like laughing. And so with that, have an amazing day. Thank you so much again, Kinley. It's been a super pleasure.
Thanks so much for having me, Sylvie. It was a lot of fun.